Good morning. Welcome. I'm Roosa. Welcome to my presentation on setting a Hunter the Reckoning campaign in Japan. This presentation is a bit of a campaign retrospective. So for the last year, I've been running a campaign at home for my wife and our friends, using for me, for the first time, Hunter the Reckoning 5th edition. I really love the 5th edition of World of Darkness games. I've been running Vampire the Masquerade previously. And for this group, we had 2 experienced players who had done Vampire before, and then 2 completely newbies to the world of role-playing. And in the end, we just wrapped the campaign up at 31 sessions in 11 months. And well, the basic pitch was, what if Hunter the Reckoning, but in Kyoto? If you're not familiar with the game, it's the sister game of Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse, but instead of playing a monster, you are playing a human who wants to take them out. The characters in this game don't have basically any supernatural tools, so mundane weapons, intelligence gathering, trying to overcome like these incredible odds to take out these monsters who are preying on humans. If you are familiar with other World of Darkness games, the key mechanics here are danger, which is sort of like a very narrativistic mechanic of like having a number and the danger goes up as the situation gets more perilous. You have desperation dice, which is sort of like analog to like blood dice from Vampire Masquerade, which is about these people having access to greater feats of skill as the situation gets worse. And then edges is sort of stands in the place of supernatural powers, but they represent more of a mundane things of having access to maybe a single magical artifact or access to a fleet of vehicles or a stash of weapons. And because this is a World of Darkness game, the typical quarries, so things you're hunting, are vampires, werewolves, but also ghosts, sorcerers, fae, and then weirder and weirder things still, but still very much staying within the wheelhouse of World of Darkness. And this picture is from the Hunter the Reckoning rulebook, and I give it to you here because I love it, because it's the most concise way I've ever seen anyone communicate in a role-playing game rulebook what the actual game is going to be about. So most of the game is about researching, investigating, and then just a very a tiny slice of like action horror of actually confronting the monsters. So this is definitely not a hack and slash game. When we were setting out to play our Japan-themed game, we had a few expectations. We definitely wanted to recreate that sort of like heightened reality sense that we've seen in Japanese popular culture. We wanted Japanese monsters, Japanese characters. I wanted to run specifically like a very city-centric game. We talked about like where do we want to set this, and we settled on Kyoto, which is sort of like cultural capital of Japan. And then, because I'm a huge nerd, I wanted to use like actual history and locations, because that's also a very World of Darkness way of doing things, like things being the way they are in reality, but just having this maybe supernatural or a bit more horrific undertone. There were definitely challenges I had recognized going into this campaign. There was basically nothing on like specifically Japanese monsters in World of Darkness. There have been like individual source books in the 90s, I think, about like maybe werewolves in Japan, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to start from scratch. I was the only one, out of 5 people at the table, I was the only one who has never visited Japan, let alone visited Kyoto. So that was going to be a challenge. And then I had players who definitely wanted Hunter is a game that's been very deliberately written to be a bit of a monster of the week kind of game where one hunt follows another. So you take down a monster and then you track the next monster and so on. But I had a specific player who definitely wanted an overarching story. So then I had to find a way to sort of merge those two perspectives. And then I had the complete beginners. Like I want to invest in these campaigns that I prepare and run. But then, of course, it's a specific set of challenges, how to make it very approachable when these people have never seen a D10 in their life. And also with the current fraud situation with generative AI, I found myself painted into a bit of a corner because it was basically impossible to search online for like where to get anime-style portraits without them being AI generated. I won't be going into this part in this presentation at all. Instead, I will be using like stock photos, but for the game, so sort of like, if you're interested, talking after this presentation, we did use a generative AI to create a bit of like a consistent anime aesthetic for those character pictures that we used. My way of running these things is definitely, I would describe co-creative. I want players to bring stuff into the game. So I dislike planning, and like maybe I also have like a lot of blockers of like just coming up myself what the game is going to be about or what the characters are going to be like. So instead, I asked all the players to bring in sort of like characters in that would have some like themes about Japan, Japanese culture. If they had like sort of like anime tropes they wanted to bring into game, and specifically I asked each one of them to bring a monster with them. What is the monster that sort of like made you into a hunter? In the actual game, Hunter the Reckoning, there's it's described in a very specific way that a hunter becomes like a capital H hunter when they have this like great transitional moment or trauma, which then like turns them into people who can't do anything else with their life except hunt monsters, which I think is a great conceit for a role-playing game. But as you can see, like I got very different kinds of things. I thought people would bring like starter level monsters, but then I got like the most notorious demon king in all Japanese folklore. I got an entire Ghibli movie, and then I got two like vagues, like the monsters, go figure. But we'll definitely see what we came up with those ingredients. So to wrap up sort of what the campaign was about, what I took for myself when creating this campaign was like, okay, I need to create this like a Japanese sense of place, sense of monsters and places and themes. I wanted to run a city-based Hunter the Reckoning game, which I feel is a bit different than running, for example, a city-based Vampire the Masquerade game that I've also talked about previously. And then I wanted to come up with a mechanic that would encourage the players to play drama between player characters, because like in Japanese pop cultures, or the central drama is between the main characters, not between like main characters and their individual love interest NPCs. So this is going to be sort of a structure. I'll be going through things, and I'm going to make sure that there's time in the end for a bit of a Q&A. Yeah. So, to cash in the promise I made in the heading of this presentation, we're going to go through sort of like 3 different lenses I looked at. I looked at Japan and matching Japan with Hunter the Reckoning 5th edition specifically. And this is the place where I preface this. I'm not Japanese. I'm not an expert on cross-culture studies or Japanese Shinto or Buddhism. This is all definitely for entertainment purposes, although if someone catches something that I did wrong, I'm very interested in. But my perspective is definitely from a game design perspective. And that will be evident in the shallowness of my references. I do want to make, if this is not super familiar to you already, when looking into like what are Japanese monsters, like two concepts are very, very important. One is yokai, which is sort of like a generic word for supernatural creatures. And actually, like it covers from Western perspective, like it covers like a insane amount of like cover everything from ghosts to like mythological animals, both good and bad. But definitely, like if it's a creature and supernatural, it's probably a yokai. And then we have kami, which is I think a word that is more widely known in the West. Which sometimes sort of like as the gods of Shinto religion, although Japanese themselves don't really have this like especially like before the arrival of Buddhism or Christianity in Japan, they don't have these like clear borders like what is a god and what isn't a god. Rather, kami is this like a very big or very powerful or very like a spiritual creature that's very grounded in a location. So if you now go about in your life and you see something referred to as kami or yokai, then the answer might, like, is this kami or is this yokai? The answer might be yes. And also, what I discovered is Japan also doesn't have the same distinction between like religion, folklore, and history. So you might be in a situation where you're looking at a Japanese creature and you're thinking like, is this Jesus, Tonttu, or Mannerheim? And the answer might be yes. So keep that in mind. Example types of yokai. So as I said, very useful concept, but also like very wide. Everything from hybrid animals. I put an example of a ghost yokai, Taira no Masakado, which is an actual historical person who rebelled against the imperial government in, I think, around 1000 AD. But then has been described definitely as as a very famous ghost, since his decapitated head allegedly flew over most of Japan, trying to cause specific mischief, and whose ghostly head was shot down by an arrow from a kami specifically. So a lot of fun looking into this. If you are thinking about doing something like this yourself, I cannot recommend enough the website yokai.com, which has like basically functions as, from my perspective, system agnostic monster manual to Japanese monsters. It has every conceivable type of yokai in a very structured way with illustrations for all of them. I definitely use these a lot, especially in Hunter the Reckoning, which is, as you saw in that pie diagram, a lot of the game is about like trying to discover like what sort of creature is this, what sort of powers might this creature have, what sort of weaknesses I might have, and then every time I had this character who had a mechanic where she could like roll dice and get background on a monster. More often than not, I would open up this website and I was like, you find out this thing. And then it would be canon for my interpretation of this monster. But definitely Wikipedia was very important in understanding sort of historical folk heroes who would clash with these mythological beings. For example, Shutendoji, the Oni demon king, allegedly was defeated by like five Japanese samurai heroes who definitely were historical characters. So again, the overlap there, and was a good place to find primary sources because yokai.com is definitely for like more of like an entertainment purposes website. Then there's urban horror. So if sort of like looking into yokai and oni and stuff like that is definitely like in the, at least conceptually, in the prehistory of, or in the history of Japan, then Japan of course also has a very like lively and vivid urban horror scene, and a lot of great horror movies come out of Japan every year. And this is also a place where there's a lot of good creatures that you might want to use in a World of Darkness game, especially Hunter. And a lot of these sort of like just raised a couple of creatures there. They also have their own pages on yokai.com. So there's definitely like a continuity of like the ghosts of sort of like ancient Japan and then modern Japan. And the themes are very consistent across the ages. Leave solitary women alone. If there's a very beautiful woman alone in the woods, just walk away. That story will never end well for you. The dead are after you, and if you hear a noise in the night, don't look. Those stories don't end well either. So at this point, I definitely have my monster catalog set up for me. I have like hundreds of very cool, very Japanese monsters with very like detailed descriptions. But I wanted this to be specifically in World of Darkness, and a key component of World of Darkness is sort of like the political horror and social horror. So let's look up how Japan is horrifying. And here again, definitely wanted to set off what the players brought. Because what the players bring, to me, tells what the players are interested in, and if the players are having fun, I'm having fun. So we had a sort of like this firstborn police who thought that the character thought that he was the patriarch of this group, much to the chagrin of the other characters. We had a very traumatized, a bit of like a rebellious character. We had the dropout, outcast character, and then we had like the picture of beauty geisha character who despite the kind of the prestige associated with geisha, had been raised by yakuza. So there was like this very sort of like a guilt by association of like or disrepute. And all the baggage that comes with being a beautiful public-facing woman in a still quite patriarchal, sexist society. So then, out of these, I cooked up these four major things that I could then take as, okay, let's take this as granted. I have a million monsters to select from, but these are like the actual horror themes of the campaign. What sort of monsters can I map into these? What sort of real-life interactions can I map onto these? And use that as the basis. For example, here's one of the early campaign big baddies, Shuten Doji, who was masquerading. A lot of Japanese yokai are shapeshifters, which for World of Darkness like really works, because then World of Darkness is often about like monsters in disguise, and it helps explore the horror in our actual reality by imagining like people who do evil as monsters, or like exploring evil doing through the metaphor of monster. Hunter the Reckoning is very. The core book definitely comes with a good selection of very well written monsters, but the system is still like very easy to adapt. I was very happy to find at the very basic, if I wanted there to be a monster, I could literally give it one number, and then I wouldn't have to throw dice. All the players would say like, I want to shoot it, or I want to seduce it, or I want to reason with it, and they would just roll their dice based on their character, and I would just compare it to this like a difficulty number, and I had, because I had run Vampire the Masquerade previously, I had a pretty good sense like of what a difficulty of 3 might entail. And then, but the system also like allows you to like add complexity to your taste. Like you can add like, okay, it's difficulty 4 if it's really good at fighting, but then if you're trying to intimidate, if you're trying to like deceive it, it might be difficulty 3 because it's not that good at that thing. And then you can add like their pre-made powers, but you can easily come up with your own special powers and add in specific pools, like dice pools. Like because I wanted the Shuten Doji to be very, like it's described in mythology as this like very warrior-esque, like a Japanese feudal lord, like very like feat of arms and huge strength. And he has these claws that have a specific dice pool. And even though the sort of the stat block might be quite simple and quite easy to spin up, I definitely, when creating monster for Hunter the Reckoning, one of the things is that actually more important than the specific stat block is the background and the recent history and how to find these extra information. As established, the players are most of the time going to be doing research on these monsters because they don't have magic powers. They need to compensate with something else. Yeah. The second big topic was how to run Hunter the Reckoning as a city-based game. This is what, like, how to run this game is one of those things that I have the biggest gripe with World of Darkness games. Not just the current generation of games, but like World of Darkness in general. Definitely doesn't want to tell you how to play this game. You will have to invent yourself what your how to structure a game, what your game is going to be about. It mostly gives you themes and a couple of mechanics. I've talked about creating a running cities in Vampire the Masquerade last year. I won't be going through that content, but you're free to check that out. Specifically for my campaign, I was focusing on how to recreate Kyoto, a real place, but we would have to turn it into sort of a fictional place for the purposes of our game. And actually, what I found is it's not that different recreating an actual location. So you start with a bird's eye view. By the end of the campaign, I had looked at Kyoto so much through Google Earth that I could name all the hills around it. Like Kyoto is famously like situated between 3 mountains that are named, literally translated, West Mountain, North Mountain, and East Mountain. Then you break down the city because no one can just be in the city. It's very hard to get a grasp of like, I'm on this street. What does that mean? So I broke the city down into like a rough. I did a bit of research, like is there like a specific character to different parts of town? Looked at different ways, like tourist maps describe the geography, and then just came down with a couple of different districts and wrote for myself like, how are these different from each other? And then added a few locations, like here's the home base, a fictional shrine that the play characters were using as a home base, and then sort of a couple of places where the characters work and so on. Important thing: set scenes in specific locations. Actually, very good effort to pay out. For example, very early in the campaign, we set one pivotal scene at Kinkakuji, which is a very famous, like a golden pavilion on the outskirts of Kyoto, very historical. And then we had I had concocted a festival that would happen there, and then the Oni Demon King was at this pavilion, and shenanigans took place. But this was actually at the end of the game, even though this was very early in the campaign. At the end of the game, one of our two newbie players was like, "Oh, I really felt like we were in Kyoto," because she had visited this location, and I could accurately describe like the shape of the pond around the pavilion, and stuff like that. So even just
really worried that it would burn.
Yeah, the player characters had brought, I don't know, flamethrower or something, because in this game, for some reason, fire works on everything, no matter what immunities they have, usually, not always. So yeah, they were very, very anxious about burning down historical locations. And then you create a sense of moment. I used like news clips, like actual news clips that took place. We placed the game in very specifically in the fall of 2024, because that's when we started the campaign. So I could just like troll news sites, and then like during the campaign, just like, oh, this happened, and you heard about this, and this food is in season. And also I looked at this like chart of what is weather like in this place during this time of year, quite a lot. And then this I did just for my nerves, because I was the only one who had never been to Kyoto at our table. And I don't think this actually came into anything, but it was a way of reassuring myself that I know what the street looks like. And maybe it did make my descriptions a bit more vivid, even if the descriptions didn't come out of these videos. But I felt like, oh, there's this sort of soundscape. And for example, in the top one is a very, very famous, like the Arashiyama, like bamboo grove, which is a major tourist attraction near Kyoto. And of course, I had to set one of the big monster scenes there. And then I knew, like, okay, it sounds like this. It has this and this kind of layout, and it has these kind of paths that you walk through. And if you're doing adventuring in the same location, it automatically means that you're going to be having recurring characters, even if you don't want to. Like, you can definitely, there's a way to run Hunter the Reckoning that I think might be very popular, is like as a road trip. Let's say road trip across United States in the style of like the first season of Supernatural. It's very like you drive from town to town and you meet people and they have a monster problem and you solve the problem, then you go to the next place. If you stay in the same location, the players will want to talk to the NPCs they met while hunting the last monster. So definitely invest, if you're doing a city-based game, invest in tracking your NPCs. And here we come to 3 like top tips that can be sort of like lifted out of context. One of them definitely is like keep NPCs spreadsheets. This was even more important in Vampire, which was I had to track also the political situation of all these NPCs, but also in Hunter, it's very good, or in any role-playing game, it's very good practice to have a one-stop shop for looking up like, oh, what is this character about, and then you have the stats and you have the personality and mannerisms, and you can do color coding, you can put character portraits there, and it helps you a lot, keeping things manageable and keeping things enjoyable for yourself. The other thing about having like a very like city-driven game was coming up with a narrative, with the overarching narrative that would revolve around the same city. And here's a doodle in Finnish that I did at the beginning of the campaign. Oh, God damn it! I want to run a series of monsters, but my players want an overarching narrative for the campaign. So what I ended up doing, I later learned that there's a There's a word for this kind of story structure, which is a plot coupon. So for the purpose of this campaign, I came up with this idea like, okay, the overarching narrative is going to be about an event, which then the players find out is about there's this the tomb of the Dragon King who has died 1,000 years ago, but now the tomb is opening, which is a huge source of like trouble, but also like a source of power. Who will get to access the tomb? What will they do with it? And then, of course, there was a set of 4 seals associated with the cardinal directions that then the player characters had to hunt down, and then some of those seals were in possession of different kinds of factions. So there's another hunter cell. There were a couple of like shapeshifters working in the name of, let's say, Mother Nature, and then a couple of vampires that started as an Easter egg because they were vampires from my Helsinki vampire game, but then it turned into like a very big part of the overarching narrative. I won't go into what happened in the game, but we'll have some time in the Q&A if you're interested. My second top tip is that. And this was one of those things that where World of Darkness games just don't tell you how to play the game. One of the biggest things that helped me was coming up with this like 1-week adventure cadence. So the game was played. One thing I hate specifically when it happens in role-playing games is that the player characters have nothing to do in their lives except go to the next thing. So if they're vampires, they wake up at dusk and they go talk to the NPC, and then they go to talk to the next NPC, and then they go investigate someplace, and then you discover that your whole game that took 2 years to play has happened in real life during a single weekend. As like, it doesn't feel good. So I insisted that we will have like a adventure cadence, and every week every character could do these 2 downtime activities. Maybe they included a role, but this was a sort of mechanic that they could also like have their own projects, and the dropout outcast character was a bit of an inventor. So we could set up these like research projects of like how to create holy sake, because it's apparently one of the key weaknesses of these Oni demons. And then I created this system of everyone having a countdown of keeping their life together. One of the like really core themes in Hunter the Reckoning is that it's destructive to your actual human life to be hunting these monsters all the time and thinking about these monsters all the time. So the characters could decide like, I'm going to put all my effort into researching this monster, and then we'll do multiple hunts, but then there would be a cost. It would deteriorate. Their real life would deteriorate, and at the end of the 6-box countdown, there would be sort of like a bad thing, like you get fired, or you have to drop out of school. And I felt that created. I think no one actually went to 0 in their real life countdowns during the campaign, but it definitely like created a sense of like there's a cost to the human lives of our characters from all this monster hunting. Yes. So the third one. So we've covered now getting the Japanese monsters, running a game in a Japanese city, and the third one technically doesn't concern Hunter the Reckoning or Japan, but this was a system that was inspired by a lot of like Japanese popular media and like high stake, like dramatic storytelling. So I feel like it's good. I want to give this as a mechanic for you to take into maybe your own games. So one of my gripes in role-playing games is about in fiction we have these like the drama usually takes place between main characters and it's highly dramatic. They always have things to fight about, and actually LARPs usually great with this, but tabletop RPGs less so. Party conflict is usually sort of like this, more of a not conflict between characters, but more of a conflict between players, or maybe players and the game master. and I want to experiment a little. Like, can we turn one way of, can we loan a method of coming up with good character relationships and lift it into a role-playing game setting? And what I came up with, or like what I stole, was dramatic questions. So dramatic questions is basically how I encountered it. Was a writing advice for like fiction writers, so that in every scene that you write, there should be a dramatic question, like, will these two characters get along? Will the main character get this other character's help? And so on. And what I did, I turned them into specifically like inter-player character relationship questions. So during this game, actually already during session 0, so in campaign preparation, for each character there was a question that they were sort of like the character or maybe the audience was asking about this character's relationship toward that character. And every time they were able to answer that explicitly at the table, has Ichiro now helped Shingen stop drinking? And then we would sort of like at the table agree, and especially the players of these two characters were like, yeah, this, like, yes, he has, or maybe no, he hasn't, and has now given up on trying to get this other character to stop drinking. Regardless if the answer is yes or no, you sort of cross that question off, and everyone gets 2 XP, and gets to feel good about it, and then you come up with a new. And this really, I feel like, primes everyone to think of relationship not as static, like not, this is my best friend, and our interactions will be best friending for the whole campaign, but rather, this is the situation that we're in right now, and this is supposed to change. We're gonna get XP if this situation changes, which is actually the kind of the meat and bones of storytelling. And like interpersonal drama, and this was here's the actual like the piece of whiteboard paper that hung for a year in our living room that has a lot of like the regular relationship map stuff, like relationship to NPCs and monsters and so on, but also like constantly has the dramatic questions, and we would actually, if not every game, at least every other game, we would look at those questions like, okay, where are we in terms of this interpersonal drama? Yeah, and I felt really helped players come up with things to say. They would look at these questions and ask themselves, do I want 2 XP? And then we're like, what kind of scene could happen between these characters? And then we would ideate at the table, and then we would have great social scenes that I feel otherwise maybe wouldn't have happened. And my final top tip, apropos of nothing, music is very central to the way I think, the way I process emotions. I can recommend this way of running games for anyone. This is what I also did last year for Vampire. But this year specifically, I crowdsourced a lot of playlists. So we had a big playlist at the beginning of the campaign. Everyone threw like, oh, I like this and this kind of Japanese songs, like Japanese pop music, Japanese soundtracks, and stuff like that. And then I created out of these playlists that I could just like shuffle play if it's a calm scene, shuffle play it's an ominous situation, and so on. For example, during the campaign, I had to create the chase because I felt like these ominous scenes. I need something between like a real like fight, people trading blows with the monsters, and between like foreboding. So definitely recommend that, and definitely doesn't exclude you from using music or background sounds in any other way. Yeah, I think that was all I have to share. Or all I could think of when thinking what to share from this campaign. In hindsight, here's all my ways to contact me. You can check out my website. It doesn't have a lot of things right now, but I'm trying to build it up, and you can definitely get these slides already. And thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, please go right ahead. Woo! Yeah.
At some point in the presentation, you had this chart on like the monsters.
Yeah.
With like the different things. Where did you make that?
That was let's say adapted from yokai.com. So it has not just all these monsters, but it also like has different ways of categorizing. You can like it has like, please show me all the fruit-related yokai and stuff like that. And it did have like a major categories, but I felt some of those were a bit repetitive, so I combined a lot of those categories.
Did you use like a specific software for that, or?
I'm gonna have to. Are you talking about this? No?
No, like the chart. You had like the NPC chart.
NPC chart.
Excel one.
Oh, the Excel one. Right. Yeah. So yeah, this is Google Charts.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can use Excel. You can use Google Chart. I use Google Charts because sometimes I want to like add things while I'm at work. Sometimes I like to work on my own computer. So using a cloud software like Microsoft Cloud or Google Sheets definitely works for that. And then it's just about like picking up what sort of columns you want, and then adding stuff in. Yeah.
I didn't know you could customize it like that.
Oh yeah. And this was the first year I did like color coding, and you can create your own drop downs, like, oh, this is a vampire and this is a ghost and so on. Yeah. If there's nothing else, yeah, please.
Dramatic questions. How often do you think that they were answered during
Ooh,
play? Like
good question.
once every few sessions or more?
I think we resolved a total of like 6 during the year-long campaign. So we didn't resolve them that often. Part of it was because people were interested in monster hunting. There's nothing wrong with that. Part of it was some of these. Yeah, go ahead.
What's interesting is that kind of in each of these relationships, some of the questions are the same ones from the beginning, and some of them were kind of resolved several times. Like
Oh yeah.
from Hanako to Mitsuha, the "Can I let go of my envy of you" was unresolved, and from Mitsuha to Hanako at the end of the game, because the answers were no too many times, it ended up being "Can I save you without killing you?" Because it was like very dark path of like descending into about to become a monster. So
I think my full analysis is that the more experienced players resolved the same relationships over and over again, and those were very like dynamic, dramatic relationships. And then some relationships were, for example, between Shingen and Hanako were played with. Were played by sort of the more of like a newbie players. Maybe they weren't willing to say like, I'm not really sure. Is this really resolved? I don't want. And I was like, please say it's resolved so we can come up with a new, better like dramatic question. But if the players didn't want to resolve, then I couldn't insist. Yeah. But I feel we played on every single one of these, even though a minority of them actually got. Resolved during the game. Yeah.
So how many sessions was this?
This was, I had it in the beginning.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no. Yeah, just refreshing my mind. 31 sessions.
Oh.
In 11 months. We're that sort of place, but also, but a lot of it is like we usually gathered around 5, and we ate for half an hour, and then we got like 3 hours tops of game time. Well, yeah. So we did get quite a bit of playing done. I'm very happy with that. Yeah. That wraps our time box. Thank you so much for attending, and please don't hesitate to grab me. I would love to tell you about my character. No, wait, about my campaign. Thank you. Have a great Ropecon.